Well, I want to start by commending Minister Brown for bringing forward this important piece of legislation. As my colleague Deputy Maireann O'Connor said earlier on, it is the case that laws existed to criminalise human smuggling, and they were contained within the Illegal Immigrant Trafficking Act of 2000. However, that legislation covered a lot of issues. It covered human trafficking as well as human smuggling. And I think it is very crucial that when we're dealing with something as important as human smuggling and human trafficking, that we distinguish them and we have individual criminal justice responses in respect of each of them. That's why I think it is so important that we're bringing forward this legislation today, which deals specifically with human smuggling. If you're trying to establish a criminal justice system that identifies and emphasises the wrongdoing associated with certain criminal acts, I think it is helpful if the legislation deals exclusively with the act you're trying to prohibit and criminalise. That's why I think there is a benefit in separating the two crimes of human trafficking and human smuggling, and in respect to the latter, that we have a specific piece of legislation regulating it. You know, it's hard to decipher which is more dangerous. Both of them are deadly from the point of view of the unfortunate people who are subjected to being trafficked or smuggled into another country. Obviously, it is the case if somebody is smuggling in individuals into this country and there are tragic consequences, as can be the case, such as death, there will be other penalties that will be available and other crimes can be prosecuted in respect of those deaths. We saw that in the UK recently in respect of the tragic death of 39 Vietnamese people arising from them being smuggled into the United Kingdom. But there's also benefits in this legislation in terms of that it specifies the type of actions that the state can take in order to ensure that we can vigorously confront those people who are involved in a vast criminal enterprise in trying to smuggle people into this country. Under this legislation, there will be power given to the relevant authorities in respect of ships, Irish ships that are sailing under an Irish flag, and to seize particular documents and other pieces of relevant evidence in respect of those ships. As I said earlier on, this is an international business. It's an international criminal enterprise, and it is funded by the unfortunate and tragic circumstances that so many people around the world are at present experiencing. I think when we come back to look at the 21st century and years to come, one of the most abiding images will be the image of desperate people trying to leave war-ravaged or impoverished countries or regions in order to try and make a new life for themselves and their family. We see it in terms of people trying to cross the Mediterranean to get into Europe. Now we see it with people trying to cross the English Channel to get into England, and we've seen it for many years at the border of Mexico and the United States with people from Central America and Southern America trying to get into the United States of America and Canada. I suppose all of these actions share a number of characteristics. First, you have people who are leaving desperate regions. Second, the reason they are leaving those desperate regions is predominantly because of maladministration and bad governance by the governments in the countries from where they are coming. Now, that is a consistent feature when you look at the migrant crisis that we face today and that these people are facing. They're not leaving for purely arbitrary reasons. They're leaving out of necessity. They're leaving Syria because it's a war-torn country. They're leaving Nicaragua or Venezuela because of the inability of the governments there to ensure that the quality of life is available for people in those countries. And that's a huge challenge, not just for the countries that are providing the maladministration, but for those countries to where they are seeking to come. Countries in Europe, the United Kingdom, and indeed America and other countries around the world, where migrants are desperate to come in order to ensure that they can have the opportunity to live a better life in the same way as Irish people who left this country in the 19th century did when we left as a result of the political crisis here and the war ravages that were caused here in the 19th century, and indeed the famine as well. So I think we need to recognise that the solution to human smuggling and human trafficking really lies at a much higher international level. In fairness to Minister Brown, I know that neither he nor the government can be expected to seek a resolution in respect of it. However, when you look at the way the international community has come together to deal with the climate crisis and the recent conference we've had in Glasgow, surely we're crying out for a similar type of convention and agreement in respect of the migrant crisis that exists around the world. And it can't simply be the case that the migrant crisis is going to be resolved by countries deciding that huge numbers of people will migrate to different parts of the world. That may be a consequence of it, it may be a characteristic of it, but really there's more to it that is required. And what really is required is to ensure that consistent and good levels of governance and management in countries around the world can be achieved. Now, that may appear naive, it may appear too optimistic, but I think we're going to have to accept that the crisis of migration is going to continue throughout the 21st century unless we can put in place some form of a more coherent system to respond to the issues affecting people who are leaving those countries. As has been mentioned, I think probably the most important people when it comes to smuggling are the people who are being smuggled. The fact that they have paid money and the fact that they're doing this consensually and with their own agreement does not take away from their desperation. They're in an appallingly desperate situation. And obviously, and I'm sure it is the case, Minister, that when they arrive here, if they've been smuggled into this country, those people will be able to avail of the international protection system that operates here and which I know is improving, and you're doing your best to ensure it becomes much more effective. I think the issue of international protection here has probably been alleviated as a result of the pandemic. The numbers are down significantly to what they were 2 years ago. And if people find themselves in the unfortunate and horrific situation that they've been smuggled into this country by criminals who have no consideration for the health of the people being smuggled, well, then I think it's imperative on this state to protect those people when they arrive in. I noticed that Oireachtas were critical of the bill and that it didn't contain any specific references for migrants, but I think, as you know, Minister, those protections are elsewhere, but they also need to be added to. Thanks very much, Ken Corley.